Welcome back. You're watching live now from Fox. I'm your host, Carl Lahara. We are about 3 minutes away from listening to President Biden. He is going to be addressing the nation from the Oval Office over there in Washington, D.C. A live look outside in D.C. while we still wait to get a shot from that address that, again, is just moments away. The president is going to be speaking on the heinous acts that happened just yesterday at a rally for former President Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. He is going to be speaking on, of course, security measures and also hopefully providing some more commentary to the questions that so many people are having right now, which is how could this have happened? I would like to keep this shot of the White House for just a moment here. We do want to welcome in some political analysts that are going to be with us as we watch for this monumental address that we're going to be hearing from Biden. Okay, as I was saying here, live look out there at the White House over in Washington, D.C., just moments away from listening to President Biden. He is going to be addressing the nation. That is going to be happening at 8 o'clock Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. So just over a minute away from that. But in the meantime, let's bring on some more of our political analysts that are going to be with us throughout this entire event. I'd like to welcome into the conversation now Brian Sobel. Brian, good to see you. Really a historic weekend with the events that we have seen just yesterday, the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. And in just moments, we're going to be hearing from Biden regarding the totality of the events that we have witnessed. So tell me, what are you most looking forward to with Biden's address?
Well, Carell, I don't think he's going to provide a whole lot of additional detail. I'm wondering whether he is going to give a speech that really coalesces around unity and the need for the political rhetoric and the heat of the political season to be toned down. There's enough responsibility from Democrats and Republicans on this subject, and clearly this kind of rhetoric motivates individuals like this shooter to do something, and that's what is so disturbing in these cases.
Brian, I do want to bring up just a shot that we do have. It's just a slate at the moment, though. I know that these addresses, they are supposed to get underway kind of right on time. So any moment now. But you were saying that you don't expect him to really say a whole lot. And we're discussing about this political rhetoric, and it's what a lot of people have been talking about as well. After seeing the events that played out yesterday, there's been people pointing to this divisive nature of the political spectrum that we have been seeing over the last few months. That's what has motivated these extreme views and extreme acts to even occur. It's expected that Biden today is going to, again, drive home his message of unity and present that leadership that people have been wanting to see from him, especially after the first presidential debate, where we have heard a growing number of even Democrats calling for him to step down. Do you think that he will be able to fulfill that promise to the American people and restore that confidence in his own leadership?
Well, whether he can restore confidence in his ability to lead the nation forward and be that candidate, I don't think this speech does that. He has to, over the next few weeks, but very, very soon, actually, demonstrate that he's going to go forward. That he's
Stand
not going
by.
to be
He
talked
is
about.
live
Yep.
right now, Brian. I'm going to take it in full.
Yep.
Let's watch. All right, that address from the Oval Office from President Joe Biden just wrapping up there. I'd like to bring back into the conversation now. Joining us here, a political analyst, Brian Sobel. Brian, so he spoke for less than 10 minutes right now. This is the shortest Oval Office address that we have heard throughout Biden's entire presidency, given how significant the events were from yesterday. Former President Donald Trump shot at a rally. Right now, the rhetoric from people saying that politics has been divisive. What do you make of this address that Biden just gave to the country?
Well, if the design, Carell, was to reassure Americans that we have this vibrant democracy, I think he tried to do that. That he did, however, run in, the incident, the Capitol insurrection, or however you want to phrase that. He ran in the Nancy Pelosi's husband's situation. So he introduced some themes that we haven't heard over the last few hours in a more dramatic way, which to me sounds more campaign-like than anything else. But having said that, the address was short. Maybe I'd question if it was even necessary, given that there wasn't anything new in the talk. But I think for some people in the country, just seeing the president in the Oval Office may be enough.
Let's talk about what was just said by Biden. We do have some of the bullet points here. I'd like to pull them up for our viewers. Here, Biden's Oval Office address highlights. So basically, what he said was, we still don't know the suspect's motive. There's no place in America for any violence. Americans must stand together. The need to lower the temperature in politics, shooting calls on all Americans to, quote, take a step back. We're not enemies, we're neighbors. Let's talk about maybe the grit that these comments have. Do you think they really spoke to the American people and to possibly the confusion that a lot of folks are seeing in this political season, given the tragic events that happened yesterday in Butler, Pennsylvania?
Well, all of these are good bullet points. No argument with any of them. But there's so much we don't know yet about what happened yesterday. We don't know much about the shooter. We don't know, as the first bullet point on the screen suggests, we have no idea what the suspect's motive was. We're starting to get a picture that may or may not be accurate. We'll have to get more information about the life of this shooter, at least from some of the people he went to high school with, which tells us that, as with a lot of these other cases, the loner, somebody who ate alone, was alone, and that translates to a lone wolf situation. So we've seen this time and again in American history, and we've seen it in world history, by the way. You go back to so many incidents around the world. I was chatting with some people and saying it goes back a couple thousand years to trying to make political change by the assassination of Julius Caesar. I mean, nothing has changed in a couple of thousand years. These political assassinations or attempts are attempts to change the course of history. And that's what we saw yesterday, perpetrated by a very young person.
As I mentioned before, this is the third time that the president has given an address to the nation in his Oval Office. Two other times back in 2023, one of them in October 19th, a 15-minute speech on the Israel-Hamas war and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And then on June 2nd, 2023, a 13-minute speech after the passage of the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023. Maybe if you can kind of weigh the gravity of each of these different scenarios in which the president felt he had to address the nation, and then kind of compare them to what we saw this weekend, another address, but again, less than 10 minutes we heard from him.
Well, excellent question. And there are times when the president must meet with the American people. And the Oval Office has a tremendous amount of symbolism. And so it raises the import of the address. Earlier today, he spoke from the map room in the White House as an example. But this, coming from the Oval, is is going out to the American people, I think, to reassure Americans that we live in a democracy. We don't solve our problems with guns, that we need to spend more time talking with each other rather than arguing. And the length of the speech and the quality of the speech and the quantity of the wording relative to the subject, I think all of that was sort of secondary. It was such a short address, and you are listening for very key bullet points in something like this, and it wasn't anything really informative. It would have been more a hey, don't worry, we're, your government's operating, and we want everybody to get along, which isn't a bad message at all. Not knocking that message, but you're left kind of saying, okay, so what was that all about? Why did the president take 10 minutes to basically say what he had already said?
So I'm actually looking back at the video because we do have it here in our system already. He spoke for exactly 6 minutes and 26 seconds. We have been waiting really for a few hours now to hear what he had to say. Do you feel that his speech, the amount of time that he gave it, pretty much goes accordingly with the sequence of events that we saw yesterday?
Well, to the extent that he's keeping the American public up to speed on what he's thinking and what the government may be thinking, mission partially accomplished. Again, as I suggested before we looked at or listened to the speech, I didn't know what he could really add to what's already out there. And in fact, he didn't add much. He really just hit the high points again about people getting along, toning down the rhetoric on both sides of the aisle. Those are all fine messages. But if this speech had any more intent, I would say I don't know what it was.
You know, Brian, I'm wondering if it would be worth it, in fact, here, because it was so short, to go ahead and replay it for you, for myself, for our viewers. I think that sometimes when you watch something twice, you can probably get a little more context from it. You can decide an opinion if you want, if you will, on that message. I'm going to go ahead, Brian, stick with us here. Let's replay this again for the viewers that are just joining us. Again, at the top of the hour, President Biden gave an address to the nation from the Oval Office, the third one from his time as president. And in it, he did discuss the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. So, Brian, again, stick with us. Let's play this out for our viewers who are just joining us. Once again, I'd like to bring into the conversation a political analyst, Brian Sobel, who has been joining us throughout the breaking news that we just brought to you there. Brian, after hearing it for a second time here, I would like you to just quickly give us our thoughts here for our viewers. What do you take away from that address?
Well, again, it was aspirational about what this country can be if we can get along, and to set aside our divisive thinking for a greater and more perfect union. Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, whatever, that argument is essential to the debate. But when it ramps up and it becomes something more than that, that is something that the president cautioned against. It, again, a short talk, themes we've heard, no new information about what happened yesterday, but the president did reach out for the person that was killed at the rally yesterday, and of course for Donald Trump.
Given all of these events that we have seen this weekend, it's possible that some feel there was some left that could have been said there at that presidential address. Again, it was just about 6.5 minutes or so. It's the shortest address that he has given. This is the third one from his presidential term. The first one back in October 2023, and then another one in June 2nd of 2023. He also talked, of course, about the Republican National Convention, which is starting tomorrow in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We do have a live look out there. Brian, I would like to get your thoughts just on that. Another major event happening here. The breaking news of the attempted assassination of the former president, no doubt, is going to be top of mind for so many people. But looking ahead to tomorrow, on Monday, when this RNC finally gets underway, what are you most looking forward to? What do you expect?
Well, I want to see whether the tenor of the convention is inclusive, totally inclusive. That would be the one change that I would see. But when one attends one of these conventions, it's a kind of a giant party, and so how early Donald Trump makes an appearance will be something to be to watch for. His selection of the vice presidential candidate is top of mind for everybody who will be there, because that's going to be the ticket corral going forward. And so this convention in Milwaukee is very, very important for the Republican platform and for Republicans around the nation. So you're going to have primetime dominated by speakers that they think will be of interest to the American public and Republicans. And I think they were quite happy, I'm sure, to add Nikki Haley to the to the number of people giving speeches, which is supposed to occur on Tuesday night. So there's a lot to look forward to. I think the security piece of this, my guess is that the authorities at all levels have this under control. You heard earlier today the Secret Service talk about this being a whole of government approach that's been going on for 18 months. And I have no doubt about that. I don't know that I've seen more security than at a convention to get in, other than when one attends the State of the Union, which is the most secure event I've ever seen. It's a really unbelievable amount of security. So I suspect that the convention will have this kind of security. And I suspect that even though the Secret Service talked about, hey, the plan's in place and we don't need to add anything to it, I'm quite sure everything is being reviewed again today, and additional assets are being added where they may think there's a hole here or there.
Well, Brian, it has been quite the whirlwind of a week, so to speak, of course, with the tragic breaking news that we had yesterday following the latest on the attempted assassination, to looking ahead to tomorrow, the start of the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We do appreciate that you've stuck with us here at Live Now from Fox while we played that presidential address from the Oval Office. Brian Sobel, political analyst, we appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
My pleasure. Have a great night.